mouth is when I'm ocean waves.
Today on Nova Legends podcast, I have Brentsville District Coach Keyla Delaney, whose team Tigers, I believe, just got to the state final in her first year as the head coach. Keyla is the daughter. Coach Keyla is the daughter of Eugene Baltimore, a Manassas Park legend, who I heard legend about many years ago. Anyway, Coach, thanks for doing this. Great to meet you.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So just to get the broad sketches of your young career, you played at Brentsville, which is cool that you're actually playing at a school. You're coaching at a school you played for. As I said, I think your dad went to Manassas Park,
Yeah.
And he's been coaching in the area ever since, including at Brentsville. You were a star player at Brentsville, and you went to Bluefield College, where you may know a friend of mine named Richard Morgan. I don't know if you know Richard.
Yes.
Yeah, I interviewed him as well. I was at UVA at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Richard was there.
I haven't heard that name in forever. Wow.
Yeah, he was a big name when I was at UVA, and you ended up at Eastern Mennonite, and then you played there as well. Then you came and got into coaching. You're a special education teacher in Fairfax County, but you got into coaching, and you were an assistant coach at Battlefield.
Yes.
And then assistant coach to your father at Brentsville, and then decided to take the job. You have 4 kids, married to Cedric Delaney, who Shenandoah and Osborne legend, who also coaches. Anyway, did I get most of that right, Coach?
You did. You're spot on.
It's a lot. So, well, first I want to ask you. Like, I talk to coaches a lot, and they often say how patient their spouse must be with a coach, and especially when you have kids.
Yeah.
Well, you can quadruple that for you, because you have 4 kids, and you have another, and the spouse that coaches as well.
Yeah.
How are you able to do all of that? Both of you guys, you both have full-time jobs, obviously, as well. How are you able to both coach and to have and take care of the needs of 4 kids?
It's not easy. Anybody, if you talk to anybody that's super close with us, they'll even tell you they don't know how we do it, because we're constantly on the go. It's kind of no downtime, especially considering the fact that, my son is at an age where he's playing sports. So for instance, basketball season just ended on Friday, and preseason football for Cedric, because he coaches at OP, started Monday. And my son's, he plays tackle football. They just started a couple weeks ago. So it's kind of like an ongoing thing. Honestly, we probably could not balance all of this without losing our minds, without the help of the Lord, because it's crazy, it's busy. There's often so many times where, especially, in my marriage, it's like me and Cedric are in passing. He'll get the kids after so that I can go straight to practice. By the time I get home, it's like making dinner, all these things, and before we know it, we're in the bed. Just to wake up and do the same thing every single day. So it was a little bit of an adjustment for us this year, especially with me taking a head coaching job. With assistant coaching, I had a little more flexibility if I couldn't show up to a practice, or things like that. But, being the head coach, there's so much responsibility. So, I think it took a little bit of time to kind of adjust to that. But honestly, having a spouse like Cedric has helped so much, because he understood what it was going to take, especially from me as a first year coach, to kind of achieve the goals that I had set forth for this season and for my girls. And he was just, super supportive the entire time, never missed a game. He works a tough schedule. He would get off, maybe sometimes he goes in at, 4 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes he wouldn't get off at 5 until 5. He works an hour away, but still would make a way to come, and support me and things like that. So I think that's super important, just to have a spouse who understands and loves sports as much as you do. So it definitely, I'm extremely grateful to have such a supportive husband. And that's so great with our kids, because it's difficult. And most men are kind of like, when it comes to their kids, they're like, I love you, but, I'm not meant to fill your mama's spot, when she can't be here. But he does a great job at that. So
I was a coach. I coached varsity summer league and AAU, nothing like you do there, but I love it. And I think I've actually was pretty good at it. I had a great relationship with my kids. And I refereed high school for many years. And I gave up officiating when I had my second, just because I was afraid I was going to be gone for everything. And to be honest with you, I didn't like officiating that much anyway. But one of my biggest regrets of my career, and I'm 57 now, is I didn't coach longer. That's the thing I regret. I regret I didn't do that. And I have three kids. I don't have four. I have three, and I've enjoyed that. But I do regret that. What does coaching provide you that you need? I mean, you have four kids. You're a special education teacher, so you're getting a lot of that kind of the interaction, leadership that you with your job and being a parent. What does coaching provide you that you need, or that makes you a better person?
Just it gives me a sense of purpose, because I always say this, I think it's more than just basketball. I'm a firm believer in that, yes, I'm here to, coach the game that I love, the game that I have a lot of passion for, but it's so much more than that. It's about developing relationships, sustaining relationships, being a mentor, especially to these girls that are, anywhere between the age of 13 to 18 years old, and providing those girls with just kind of like another person that they can look up to, that they can confide in. A lot of kids these days feel like, they're coming from maybe a place at home where they don't feel loved, or, they come from situations that are a little tougher. And I take a lot of pride in knowing that, for me, a lot of what I do, especially with coaching, is to provide those girls with just another person that they know, really loves them and cherishes them. And, not only wants to develop them basketball wise, that's huge for me, but also just as a person. So yeah, it just kind of gives me a sense of purpose, I think.
Yeah. I don't know much about Brentsville. So when I was growing up, we didn't have the internet, of course. And Prince William County was very separate from Fairfax County and Arlington, Alexandria. You guys were in separate regions. Of course, Brentsville was a whole another region because it was a smaller school. But there wasn't the interaction. Like I used to hear legend of your father, because Manassas Park at one point was in the top 10 of the USA Today, a little single A school. And so I heard a legend of him, but we wouldn't know players from that area. I knew some of the Potomac Woodbridge players from summer camp, but it was completely different. What is the demographic of Brentsville? I'm sure it's probably changed since you played there too.
So Brentsville is in Nokesville. So they kind of changed the grid a lot, especially since Patriot opened up, Gainesville High School's opened up. It's much smaller perimeter of it doesn't cover as much area with the lines now. So we get a lot of Nokesville and some of Gainesville. So the demographics, it's Nokesville is very country. I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard, but people refer to Brentsville as cow pie high, because it literally is in the smack dab middle nowhere. As you can drive and, you might see a few cows and, deers all over the place and things like that. And then here you see Brentsville. So, it is very different than when I went to school. When I went to school, it was a much larger area that covered Brentsville. So, it was, in my opinion, a lot more diverse and things like that. Whereas now, because of the area that it covers, I will say now, in the past few years, when I graduated in 2014, it was not very diverse. I went to sub there and things like that. But now I think it's getting back to that, which I think is good and is important. But yeah, it's a small school, very family oriented, community oriented, which I love. So.
Did you always live in the area when you were growing up?
Yep. So I actually was born in Manassas, lived there, moved to Front Royal for a few years, but then we came back. So I've been in this area my entire life.
How did you get Manassas? Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you. How did you get in sport? How did you get into sports? I guess you had to play. Your father probably wouldn't have fed you.
I kind of was born into it. I was born into it where my dad grew up playing football and basketball, was very, very good at it. My mom grew up playing sports. She played, her number one sport was basketball as well. She did track as well, but really they were both basketball. They both went to Shenandoah and played. And so I was kind of born into the basketball family. So it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, you're going to learn to love this game. You know what I mean? It was never forced on us, but I think just growing up, being in the gym all the time, my dad was at Brentsville. He was at Rappahannock, and I grew up in the gym. So I naturally just grew to love it. So I started at a really young age. I think I started playing at like 5 or 6 years old, and it kind of just went from there. The love for the game just kind of grew. So
Who are your first influences in terms of how you play? I assume probably both your parents or at least one of your parents.
yeah, no, definitely both of my parents. Both my parents had a huge hand in, the success, my basketball journey and all that kind of stuff. They're the ones who put in, a lot of the work. I can't tell you how many, countless hours, especially, my dad would spend with us just out in the streets. When we were at a younger age, it was never just, okay, I'm going to put you in training. I'm going to, stick you in AAU, but he worked on our game a lot. I remember growing up where we would go on the street lights were on, and we would be working on ball handling up and down the street, one ball, two balls at a time. And he would always push us, he would push us, but also say, like, if you're able to achieve this, like, if you work hard and you can get to this point, like, this is what, we'll get Slurpees at the end of the workout or whatever case it may be. So those are just really the moments that have always stuck with me, even though I was so little, those were the moments in my life that I feel like led me to have such a successful career in high school and things like that. Granted, there were other coaches, but it started with my mom and dad really setting aside the time with their busy schedules to really work on our game with us, whenever they could. So,
yeah. Well, obviously you mentioned your parents, but who was your first important coach other than your parents?
Other than my parents, I would say Coach Sanji White was one of them. He used to coach at Stonewall High School, him and Derek Cratchlow. I grew up playing with the Virginians. Back then, a really good AU program. A lot of girls who, played with that program went on to play, mid to major Division I basketball. I grew up playing with those girls. Coach White, you can always say, like, there were so many times where I hated that man because he would push us. He would see something in each of his girls that we probably couldn't even see in ourselves, and he would make sure he pushed us, to that point to where we would get, and meet certain goals and things like that. Inside those 4 lines, he made sure that we knew that he loved us. But at the same time, when you were in those 4 lines, you knew, like, he's about business and you better be about it too, or your tail's going to be running for 2 hours straight, or you're going to be doing push-ups on the sideline for 30 minutes straight. So I think he helped me with building that solid work ethic that I think I needed to kind of push me through my high school career and things like that. So it was him, and then Coach Weaver. He was my AU coach later in middle school, and then my high school coach for 2 years. I think the biggest thing that he taught me was, again, it's more than basketball, right? He took a lot of time to build relationships, and those relationships have become lifelong relationships. I still keep in touch with him to this day. We're very close. I love him dearly. He was like another kind of like a fatherly figure for me. Again, there was times where I did not like him either. We bumped heads, especially in high school, but I think that's kind of where I learned how to take it beyond basketball with some of my girls too. So
yeah. Well, you mentioned that they're kind of inspirational kind of leaders, taught you a lot as a player. Are there elements of their coaching that shows up in your coaching today?
Yeah. So with my dad, anybody will tell you, my coaching staff will probably tell you that I over prepare. My dad was huge on, just having a great knowledge of the game. He's a great game time coach. He studies the game, and he's always well prepared. And I think that I kind of grabbed that from him. Even being an assistant, I watched, no matter who we were playing, what game we were going into, he made sure that he was prepared so the girls could be prepared. And I think that I've grabbed that from him, because I can't tell you the countless hours I've spent just this season alone watching film, studying teams, studying players, studying the team dynamics, so that I could prepare my girls the best way, that I could. Because I feel like as a coach, you can't have a great team that's unprepared. You know what I mean? So I think that from him, that's kind of what I gathered. I think that something else that I've learned is, like, I coached with Anthony Mills at Battlefield. He did phenomenal job there. It's unfortunate that he was driven out, because he completely turned that program around.
He's the boys coach.
He's at Potomac. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I was under him for 3 years, and I learned a lot from him too, because, again, he was a hard-nosed coach. The girls knew that he loved them, but on the court, he played no games. And I think that I had to learn that, I can be hard, I can be a hard-nosed coach. I can push my girls, and I can have that mentality where when we step on this floor, you have to understand that, there's no games being played here. If we want to be the best, we got to train like the best. We got to take this serious. And so with him, he taught me a lot just about the game. He taught me great coaching strategies, kind of like with the preparation a little bit, but understanding that you have to adapt the way you coach depending on who you're playing to. So he taught me a lot, and I give a lot of credit towards him because he's phenomenal. So
does your personality fit in better as an assistant coach or as a head coach? You seem to be you seem to have a strong personality. I mean that in a great way. So I can see you as a strong head coach. How did you enjoy being an assistant coach when you have to defer and you don't make the final call?
It was a good. I think that in the season that I was in for the past 6 years, I think that me being an assistant coach was great. I think that it prepared me for this head coaching job, because I think it's important to be able to sit back and take notes from whoever you're under and learn from whoever you're under. If I would have come right out of college and started coaching then, I feel like I still had a lot to learn, and a lot of growing to do. Even though I had played my whole life, coaching is much different than playing the game. You know what I mean? So, there were times, I'll tell you, and my dad would tell you probably this too, where I did not agree at all with his coaching, with the decisions he made and things like that. I would put bugs in his ear because, again, like you said, with my strong personality, my mom always says I'm not afraid to speak my mind. So there were times where me and my dad might have a little tussle because I'm like, no, this is the adjustment we need to make. And he's like, no, we're not making that adjustment. But I did. I think that I enjoyed it during that time. But being a head coach, it's just, I love it. Honestly, I love it. I think that I know the game so well that this is a good fit for me. I don't think I would go back to being an assistant unless my brother got a coaching job, and maybe I would go, sorry, that route down the road once my kids get bigger or heavier in sports. But
yeah, is your relationship with your father different as his assistant than as a daughter, or is it similar?
I think it's similar. I don't think that it created any sort of difference. I think it was harder playing for him than being a coach under him, because at this rate, we're both adults, and we're mature enough to have those conversations and kind of like reflect on things. And at the end of the day, sometimes I'd make suggestions that he didn't take, and then we would have a conversation and he would be like, okay, that might have been a good decision to make. So it was probably easier now than it was being a player for him, because it was hard to separate the dad and coach sometimes. So
yeah, we'll get back to the coaching. I want to talk a little bit about your high school career at Brentsville. How did you guys do? Were you able to get to the regional and state tournaments?
Yeah. So there was one year where we made it. I think the farthest we ever made it was the state quarterfinals.
Oh.
So we made it to region maybe once, state quarterfinals. I'm pretty sure that majority, like 3 out of the 4 years, we didn't make it past region. So, which is funny because my goal as a high school athlete, especially, when I was playing at Brentsville, was to get to VCU. That was my number one goal every year from the time I was a freshman to a senior. That was my dream, was to get there. And back then, semifinals, if you made it just to semifinals, you made it to VCU. So, I never got there. It was devastating for me, but, that's why when I got the head coaching job, I promised myself, I told myself I would do whatever it took to, whether it's countless hours in the gym with my girls, through the off season, making sacrifices during season to just make sure that my girls got to experience what I couldn't. And that was, getting to a state championship. So
you got there first year. So I didn't take very long. Yeah. So what about the development at small schools? Now, I believe when you went to Brentsville, it might've been single A. They've changed things. I can't keep track, but do you think, and you have a tremendous player, Alden Uriel, unfortunately was hurt this year, but she's a Division I prospect. What is the development difference between being at a school like Brentsville and then being at a school like Battlefield or Gainesville now, and a larger school where you play against bigger schools, and they may have similar resources because they have a bigger school. Yeah,
they do. And there's this pre-notion and this I will say is a lie that a lot of people believe that, if their children and this is mostly parents, I believe, they think that if their child goes to a 6A school rather than maybe a 3A school like Brentsville, that they'll get, more attention from college coaches, that they'll get, they're playing on a bigger platform for a bigger school, that, that'll be more helpful for their children. I don't think that's true because, a lot of college attention comes through the circuits, AU circuits. That's where you get those college looks. And I think that, yes, 6A might have more resources, as in, they're bigger schools, they cover a lot more, with the lines and how that goes. I think you could get more resources, but I think that you could be just as successful at a 3A school than a 6A school. I believe that it depends on the program and the coach. So I'll tell you, there's 6A schools that, their basketball program is not very good, and historically has not been good. And I think that parents need to look at the history of the program more. I wish parents, and I'm hoping, this is what I'm trying to build at Brentsville, is that coaches look at, the history of the program, the success of the program, but also the coaches, I should say, because my coaching staff is phenomenal as well, when making these decisions for their kids. Because a lot of parents will send their girls to a 6A school and they end up sitting the first 2 years, whereas they could come to a 3A school like Brentsville and they could play, right off the bat, get minutes their first year, develop those skills and develop their game, and possibly be starting or playing way more their sophomore year rather than sitting for 2 years and playing their junior year. So, I just think that it's a mindset that is very, very hurtful to some of these kids. I think that it's a mindset that's not technically correct. And I'm hoping that, I can continue to shift the program and shift that mindset so that people will not look so negatively on, 3A schools or 4A schools or whatever the case may be.
You got to go out of your way to schedule lots of bigger schools with your non-conference schedule.
Yeah, I do. I think it's important. And I said this year, unfortunately, I couldn't have, as much control over my schedule that I wanted to, but the games that I did have control over, I made sure to schedule 6A games, because I'm a firm believer that, you have to put your girls against some of the best in order to prepare them for postseason. I'm not a fan of scheduling games that I know we can win. I'm not a fan of scheduling games that, I feel won't benefit my girls in the long run. We scheduled a Christmas tournament at Colgan, had a lot of great competition. I scheduled against Gainesville. Unfortunately, we weren't completely healthy, so that game kind of did not go as we planned. But I truly believe those games is what prepared us for postseason, and those big moments against, better teams. In the off season, I had some of my old college teammates come in and play against our girls all, every week, because if that's what they're facing in the off season, or, in out of conference games, then once we get to conference and once we get to postseason, they're not going to face anybody that good. They're just not, especially at the 3A level. So I focus on that. I always want it to be a game that I know my girls can compete in. But also teams that I know is going to push them and, get them better and prepare them for the off season or postseason. So,
well, let's get to your college career. Why did you choose Bluefield?
So Bluefield, I liked the coach. The coach was a great coach. He was extremely invested in me. I mean, Bluefield was not close. He would travel to watch games and things like that. It was a Christian school. I mean, that was a plus for me. And also, they gave me a full ride. I had many other colleges looking at me. I do, a little bit, I feel like regret not, I think I kind of jumped into Bluefield a little quickly. I wish I could have, went down the other avenues of, going to look at these other colleges that were looking at me and things like that. But at the time, I just really felt like it was a good fit for me. It ended up being a good fit for me for the first couple of weeks until the head coach had to step down. And then that's kind of why it went south. He got booted out of there kind of. So he ended up leaving, and that's kind of when it went downhill. But Bluefield, I mean, again, it was a small college. It was a Christian college. It ended up not being my cup of tea because it was in the middle of nowhere. I've grown up in the city and I only visited once. So I really didn't get a good feel of how it truly was until I got down there. And second week I was down there, I was like, Mom, this ain't for me. Like, this is not for me. And she was like, maybe just stick it through. So yeah, but I think everything happens for a reason. I was meant to be there for a year. So
You should have asked me. My grandmother's from Bluefield. I could have told you all about.
listen, I wish I had known you back then, so I could have asked you.
Yeah, you could ask me. So nice people down there. But so, what's the NAIA experience like? Is it much different than NCAA experience?
I would say so. I would say probably talent level. It's definitely different. I think that aside from the competition level, I think that some of the luxury that NCAA athletes get doesn't really trickle down to NAIA. Because when I was at Bluefield, I mean, we would travel 14 hours to a game in a small white van, cramped with 13 girls in a van, 3-4 to a row, staying in kind of just like not very good hotels, like not a lot going through the budget for the girls basketball program. So I definitely see a difference in that. Cause again, I knew a lot of players I grew up playing with who went, to a high Division I, mid Division I, and their experience was totally different. So I would definitely say probably level of competition was definitely different. And then kind of that just overall experience.
Yeah.
So.
Well, did you also choose Eastern Mennonite because it's a Christian school as well? Or is there, what was your thought process of going there next?
So unfortunately, after my first year at Bluefield, my freshman year of basketball, it just didn't go well. Again, once the coach left, it was a hard experience for me going forward from there. So I kind of lost love for the game, something I never thought would ever happen. I was to a point where, I was like, I don't even think I want to play anymore. I don't love the game anymore, but my parents kind of were like, listen, don't let one bad experience, take away everything you've worked so hard for. You deserve to be playing somewhere. You deserve, to find somewhere where you can enjoy basketball again and, find your love again. So I literally told my parents, I was like, I'm over it. So just find me somewhere close to home and that where you guys can come watch me play and close enough to where I could, come back and forth if I want to, like come visit home more frequently. And so that's when, my dad took me to EMU. I knew nothing about it. Really, I didn't even know what a Mennonite was. I was kind of like shocked when I came on campus and I was like, what is this? You know what I mean? I was like, what is a Mennonite? Why are these people in our calf eating? They're like 80 years old. You know what I mean? And things like that. But it ended up being a great experience basketball wise. I mean, we had a very, very good team. We had those 3 years, we were very, very successful. We did make it to the NCAA tournament, I think 2 out of those 3 years. So it was a much better experience. And again, I think I ended up where I ended up for, reasons, God had me there for reasons. So I do appreciate what basketball bought me those 3 years, and it did bring the love back for me. So.
Do you drive a car to work or do you have a covered wagon like the minute? Yeah. So, got distracted there. I was talking about oh yeah. So coach, who was your coach at Eastern Mennonite and what did you learn from that coach?
Oh, Kevin Griffin. Oh my goodness. Love him to death. He was a great coach. I mean, and he was, above all else, he loved the Lord, and that shined through his work, through, with basketball and everything. He was a blessing. I mean, he took me in at a point where, again, I had no love for the game anymore, and he completely transformed it. He brought it back. And, he really taught me, keep God in the midst of everything. And things are going to work out for your good. And I will tell you right now, a lot of I owe, all glory to him, because this first year, again, I put in a lot of work. my babies, they worked hard. I mean, starting from off season, we started in June. We started earlier than most schools. They took my crap. They worked hard. I mean, hours and hours and hours of, hard work and time was put in. But, I know that, God had his hand in this. So I think that's the biggest thing that I took from Coach Griffin.
Yeah. Well, when you coach yourself, is it, I mean, you're very upfront with your faith. I'm the son of a minister. I'm a son of a
Okay.
Baptist. Yeah. Some might argue that I fell far from the tree, but I'm a son of a Baptist minister and a grandson and a great grandson, all ministers. So I'm from that line. Do you find when you coach, you have to be careful, or do you express these type of feelings with your players and your as well as a way to inspire them as well?
Yeah. So I think that this was something that I honestly struggled with this year because I didn't want to cross that line, but I think that I can't be that way because I think that I have to be myself. You know what I mean? I shouldn't have to, sugarcoat myself to accommodate anybody's comfortability, I guess. But for instance, there was a game, I think during, late in the season where I felt like, I had the desire to, pray before games, because we faced so many injuries throughout the season. It was insane. I mean, we never at any point in the season had a healthy team. It was very frustrating. And so I had, this was something I had wanted to do, but I was like, no, I'm just not going to do it. I'm just going to do it. Like, I'll pray by myself. I'll pray before games by myself. I'm not going to put that on the girls, or anything like that. But I remember before the Lakeland game, we went out to Suffolk and, I asked them, I was like, girls, listen, does anybody, I want to pray before the game today during our, pregame, meeting. And I was like, does anybody, if anybody feels some type of way, if they're not comfortable with it, just come to me, let me know. And I'll respect it. None of them did. They were all okay with it. I did it. And it was good. I mean, I think that there are people who may take that as, disrespectful or unthoughtful or things like that. But I also think that, my girls, we have such a great relationship and they trust me and they love me. So I don't think that it would ever come off as harmful. And again, me just presenting it in a way where I gave them the opportunity to express to me if it was uncomfortable for them was important too. So.
Well, Coach, you're a special education teacher, which is amazing. You got to have an incredible amount of patience, I would think. Do you find that helps your coaching, the fact that you're a special education teacher?
Yeah, because one thing you definitely need just as much with being a special ed teacher is patience with these girls. Let me tell you, I think patience is huge with coaching. I think being able to adapt, being a special ed teacher, I mean, you have to be able to adapt at all times. The way you teach, the way you handle behaviors, and so I think being able to differentiate at my job helps me with coaching, because there's so many times where I would go in with a game plan and I'm noticing that game plan is not working. And on the fly, I have to adapt. I have to make adjustments. I have to differentiate, what I thought was going to work. And, on the fly, put in what I'm seeing and what I think the adjustment, should be. And that's helped us in several games. We came out in man-to-man against Lakeland. I think this is something that going into next year, I know now is that I need to go with my gut. In that game, my gut was to go zone, but I was like, what? No, our flow is man. That's how we play. That's what we do. And within the first minute, it went 6-0 because they're a bunch of athletes. They're scrappy, they're trapping everywhere. They're doing all these things, something we're not used to with teams out on this side. And, I literally looked at my coach staff. I was like, I knew it. I should have trusted my gut. And so I made the adjustment on the fly. I was like, let's go. We had worked on it in practice just in case I wanted to pull it out, and we did. And then it ended up being effective. So yeah, I think that being a special ed teacher definitely helps me with my, with my coaching style and things like that. So.
Well, I would think being a young, successful coach and also being a player in college, that you'd be a great prospect to be a college coach one day. Would you want to be a full-time coach? Or would that be something in the future you would consider?
Um, it's actually never been it's never crossed my mind to be a college coach, but I've seen people like, Rebecca Tillett, very successful. She started out as a high school coach. And now she's a very successful college coach. You know what I mean? And I think that you really, really, really have to love the game to want to do that. You have to love coaching. And I do, you know what I'm saying? I think that there's a lot that comes with being a college coach. So I think that I would have to take my family into consideration with that, because it's like, especially as my kids are growing up, you know what I mean? How much am I going to miss, and things like that, because it's a hard job to do, being a college coach. So I wouldn't put it out of the question, but I think it's something that I would really have to think about, because again, I wouldn't want to take away from me being present with my kids and missing a lot of, their sports stuff growing up. So
Almost all male coaches as a player. Who are some of the women coaches that you look up to, and how important do you think it is for your girls to have a woman coach?
So let's see, a woman coach that I look up to. I love Dawn Staley, South Carolina, big time. She is the GOAT. She came into a program that was never successful, really, and completely changed the dynamics of that program. Now, #1 in the country. I mean, the most success. I mean, they are just amazing. And I know that it took her, it was a lot of work that she had to do to, achieve what she's achieved. And I think that it's so important to see, especially for people like me and for, even smaller girls, seeing successful coaches like that and seeing that it wasn't just handed to her. You know what I mean? It wasn't easy. It's not like she came into a successful program. She built that, which is something that I admire and that I kind of take with me, because yes, Brentsville has been successful, but they've been successful up to a point, where they've been successful and, regular season, and then haven't made it past, regionals, or haven't made it past state quarterfinals. And I think, being able to come in and revamp a program and, create your own culture and, kind of create like a winning mindset within a program is huge. And I think just taking that from her has been huge, because I've watched her since she's gotten it. For her to take it the way to the levels that she's taken it is just incredible. So I think it's important for them to have a female coach too, because I mean, honestly, girls can relate a lot more to women coaches. I think that it's not seen enough. I think a lot of times it's usually male coaches as head coaches. And I think that we can, honestly, especially growing up and playing high school basketball, I think that I have a level of just knowledge and compatibility with these girls that a male coach could not offer. So I think it's important for them to see it, and knowing that if they ever wanted to do it and be successful at it, it's very doable.
So I was in law school at UVA when she was playing at UVA. Dawn Staley.
Oh, really?
Yes, we used to play pickup a lot, and I was a pretty aggressive physical player. I wasn't a good shooter, but I was a strong player. And she was not very nice. I mean, she was a competitor, and I knew a lot of the women's players, because they come to the gym in the off season. We played pickup a lot, but Dawn was someone who I don't think I ever even had a conversation with her. We played against each other all the time. So
wow.
it was yeah, I'm happy for her success, but she was a hardcore Philly girl. I mean, she was out there to compete just like the guys, and she took no prisoners. But anyway, let's go to talk about Alden Uriel a little bit. Now, she is a tremendous player, and
Yes.
I think she averaged 30 a game last year. She was hurt this year, so she wasn't quite as prolific as a scorer. But when your father stepped down as coach, and that was big news. When you have a player of that magnitude, she's not going to pick the coach. But let's just face it, you want to keep a player like that kind of happy, because you just so many top players, especially on the girls' side, transfer now, and any school in the area would have taken her in a heartbeat. So,
in a heartbeat.
So what was that process? Was it delicate? You coming in, or whoever the next coach was coming in and coaching Alden?
So luckily I had some sort of relationship with Alden before I took the job, seeing that I was an assistant coach. And, you know, we had a lot of moments with me as an assistant coach where, you know, conversations and me pulling her, you know, game time and, you know, giving her, you know, suggestions or telling her what I was saying, tell her what I thought she needed to do better or what she was doing well. I think that kind of started the foundation of, you know, her trusting that I knew the game and I knew what I was talking about. When I got the job, I actually was very straightforward and honest with her. You know, I sat down every girl, including Alden. Alden was the first one I sat down and I told her, this is my vision. This is what I want to do with this program. This is what I expect from you. And I need you to be on board with it. And she took it and she rose to it. You know what I mean? There was never, I think that when there was a question of who the coach was going to be, she was kind of thinking, should I transfer? Because that's scary. You're going into your senior year. You have no idea who's going to take the job. You have no idea, you know, what that's going to look like. And you want to have a great senior year. You want to have, you know, a senior year that, you know, is going to be under someone who knows the game, who's going to make sure that, you know, they're coming in and making a positive, you know, difference. So I think that when I got it and I had that conversation with her, she was completely on board. So I don't think I ever kind of walked on eggshells with her, kind of scaled back things for her. I just kind of let her know early, these are my expectations and this is what I'm looking for. And, you know, she really took that on because although she was injured, man, she matured her game so much in other areas. Whereas, you know, she was so heavily relied on in the past for scoring, right? You know, again, almost scoring 30 points a game. And unfortunately she had to, you know, but this year I kind of challenged her to trust me and saying that, you know, I'm going to do what I need to do to develop these other girls on our team so that you don't have to score 30 points a game for us to win. I'm going to do my part in developing them and getting them, you know, building their confidence and, you know, developing them in the off season and in the preseason, so that when season gets here, you have more help. But what I need you to do is work on seeing the floor better. I need you to work on creating, you know, doing a good job of, you know, creating for your teammates, putting them in positions to succeed, you know, up your assists this year, do things like that. So, you know, because for me, I told her, I said, it looks much better if you're scoring 20 a game, averaging 7 assists, 6 rebounds, if you're doing everything rather than, you know, scoring 30 points a game with maybe 2 rebounds and maybe 1.5 assists. You know what I mean? So, I mean, and she took it and she did a phenomenal job this year, and all while hurt. You know, people can look and say, oh, well, she scored less this year than she has in the past. That does not matter because she matured her game in every other area this year. And for her to score almost 19 a game with being in pain, extreme pain the entire season is just incredible.
Yeah. I interviewed Spencer Nussbaum yesterday for the Washington Post, and he told a great story about Alden. I guess it was a press conference or something, and somebody mispronounced one of her teammates' names, and she corrected the.
Sure did.
Yeah, that was a very touching story. Well, we'll talk a little bit about this year. Well, before we get to that, I want to hear about. You said you had a great assistant coaches that work with you, great staff. You're a young coach.
Yeah.
Was it a transition to be managing other coaches? So you go from being an assistant coach, now all of a sudden you're a manager of other coaches. So talk about picking a coaching staff and also learning how to manage that staff.
So with picking my coaching staff this year, I was comfortable in keeping some of the coaches that were already previously on the staff. So TJ Mays knows the game very, very well. I mean, that's kind of like my go-to man. Like we talk nonstop, always game planning, always studying film, all that kind of stuff. He is such a great addition, you know, not addition, but he's a great part of my staff and a huge part of the success of our team, as well as Michael Tingen. He's been on the staff with my dad for years. That's my dad's best friend, but he knows the game. He's always in my ear about things, what he's seeing, adjustments we can make. He has a great rapport and relationship with the girls. But when I thought about bringing people in, I said that I needed to bring in people that was on board with what I was trying to do with this program, that knew the game and honestly that played. And I honestly wanted to bring more female coaches on the staff because I thought that was important. And girls who actually played college basketball. So I brought on my sister, Taylor Baltimore. I added her to the staff, played her entire life, played in high school, played in college, knows the game, very, very well. And she played for a lot of tough-nosed coaches growing up. She played for Anthony Mills as well at Battlefield. And I just knew adding her would give me another coach that could see the game the way I did, but also would see it through a lens that maybe I didn't. If she would be a great coach where I'm coaching and she's noticing something on the floor that I'm not, so she could put a bug in my ear. And then Ada Stanley, I brought her on specifically to work with my bigs, with my posts. She played at UVA Wise. She actually was a graduate from Brentsville, had a very successful career at Brentsville, and she was a great addition as well, just because, she worked so well with our bigs. I thought it was important that we had a coach specifically for them, because in the past, no post touches ever. Posts, their job was just to rebound and that's it. But I thought that if we could develop our posts and have them as an option this year, it would just our team would go to the next level, really. And that's what she did. So she was a great addition to the staff as well.
Well, this year you guys had a phenomenal rivalry with Meridian, and you got the last laugh. And it was interesting because I guess both teams had injuries all year long. So it really affected the rivalry. Unfortunately, it's too bad you guys couldn't have played both teams full strength every single matchup. But talk a little bit about that rivalry.
That rivalry is huge. Meridian has had such a lock on us since they moved up to 3A. It has been a super frustrating lock, especially for our girls. And I'll be honest, I'm going to just be honest. When I got the job, I said one of my goals is to beat them, and I'm going to do it. I said, we are going to do it because, I knew that we could. It was getting over the mental part of it. The girls were so used to going into every game. I don't know what it was about them, but it was like we were already defeated. It's Meridian. We never win. We always lose to them. We never play well and things like that. So it was just a very negative mindset that I had to break them out of. So from the beginning, I told them they are not, I had to tell them things like, they're not better than us. They're not. And you guys have to believe it. Okay. So, the rivalry is huge. We were 0-11 against them, which people might say, why is that even your rival? It seems like more of a bully. That's more of like a bully. You know what I mean? But on our end, it's definitely a rivalry because it's something that we had to overcome. And so, as we went through the season, we played them 4 times. The first time, again, we were still in that mental lock, we started out strong. And then as soon as they got this much of a lead, you could see it all over their faces. They're like, well, here we go again. And it went downhill from there. So I really focused on the mental part of it, but also the preparation. So I really studied Meridian, individual players, their team as a whole, their offense, all of that, because I felt like we needed to get over the mental part of it, but I felt like if I prepared them in, a way where they knew them as well as I did, then we could be successful. So at home, lost by 3, and that was on us rebounding. And, we missed 2 front end 1-and-1s in the last minute, 2 additional free throws. So that was on us. We played them there again, went a quarter, only scoring 2 points. You can't beat any good team putting together 3 out of 4 quarters. So I think that's when we knew we were going to face them again in the regional final. We did. And I think that we were finally at a point where we were like, we're going to get them, because we understood that we lost to them 2 out of the 3 times already just because of us, everything that we did, not executing, not playing well for 4 quarters. So going into that game, we were super confident, and, beating them. Some of the girls were like, that was literally our state championship, because just making it over that hurdle, it was just an awesome feeling. And I knew that when I got the job, I knew they could do it. They just had to believe. So.
Well, how good is Carroll County? Now, some people argue that they're the best girls team in the state. They only lost 1 game all year, and that was to a team in Georgia, I think during the holidays. But so that was a big uphill climb for you. So talk about Carroll County in the state final game.
Man, I will add on to, I will agree with whoever said they are the best girls team in the whole state of Virginia, without a doubt. I've seen a lot of basketball. I've seen a lot of teams in this, especially in this area. I mean, I saw the teams that were in the state championship, 6A, 5A. They beat anybody in the state of Virginia, and I firmly believe that. They are phenomenal. They've been playing together since the second grade. I know this because I had a conversation with the coach. They play that is their high school team is also their AAU team. You know, it's a small knit community. So that's just the culture. I mean, that's what they do out there. You know, they grow up together and they play together. So I knew going into that game, it was going to be tough for us. I'm very realistic. I felt like if we came ready to play for 4 quarters, we could play with them, but I knew it was going to be a super tough game for us, especially not being healthy, because they are, you know, it's hard to find a very disciplined team, but also a very scrappy team. And they are both, and they do it very, very well. They're all over the place. They're trapping. They're getting hands on balls everywhere, a lot of deflections, pressing, but at the same time, they're super disciplined, you know, whereas, you know, if teams are playing super fast all game long, they tend to get a little sloppy. There tends to be turnovers. That's not this team. Alyssa Irvin, you know, phenomenal basketball player. I mean, I saw her play in the state final last year, and I was impressed last year, but she's gotten so much better since last year. I watched her in film and I was like, man, but she is incredible. I mean, in their first starting 5 to 1 to 5, all could easily, in my opinion, play Division I, Division II basketball. You know, and it's hard to find a team like that. Whereas Brentsville, we have 2 girls who are, you know, 2 or 3 girls who are basketball players, and the rest are soccer, lacrosse, tennis players who just also play basketball as a hobby. So, you know, that state final game, I don't think we executed the game plan. We did the first quarter, we executed, and, you know, we kept it close, and then we started turning the ball over. We stopped rebounding. And those are things you can't do against a team like Carroll County. So unfortunately, we just weren't able to, you know, execute for 4 quarters. But, again, I say this, I wish we could play them again with a healthy team. And, you know, we lost because we didn't execute our game plan. That's just what it boils down to. But I also think that if we're completely healthy with a healthy Kara, you know, Kara had strained tendons all throughout her foot, could barely run. Alden Uriel is probably at 60% right now. She can't even, you know, no burst of speed, anything like that. Hard time getting to the bucket, things like that. I think it would have been a much closer game, but, you know, I'm proud of them regardless for even making it to the state final. So,
yeah, well, this is great. A great season, coach. Amazing job. Your first time out. Real quickly, and I know you have to run. Just give us a little bit of a preview of next year's team. You got to replace, obviously, a very good player.
Yeah, so I have to replace both Alden and Kara Balmer. I want to say that I feel like Kara Balmer gets stuck in the shadows sometimes because, again, Alden Uriel is amazing, but Kara Balmer has been such a staple for this program for years, and it's going to be hard to replace them. It is. I think anybody who knows basketball knows it's going to be difficult, but I'm confident that, you know, I've laid a good foundation this year. And I have girls coming back that were, you know, came up big for us, you know, a lot this season. I have Peyton Brown, our freshman. She was starting for us, number 4. She was our leading scorer against Carroll County. And honestly, if she would have got more touches, you know, we kind of stopped giving her the ball, but if she got more touches, she might have, you know, scored close to 20 points that game. She is great work ethic, great athlete. And just from the time she started, you know, coming to us in, you know, July to now, she's making great strides. So I'm excited to have her back. Savannah Price, she'll be a junior next year. Our post rebounds well for us, has really grown as a post. She's going to come up huge for us. Liz Rice, our captain, our leader. She had a big season. She grew tremendously this year in just her skill development. So we definitely, Brooklyn Miller is coming back. We have so many pieces, you know, that I feel like didn't get noticed as much as they should have, because, you know, again, we have, you know, this phenomenal, player in Alden Uriel and Kara Vollmer. So I'm excited to just continue to build on that foundation. And I'm glad, again, going into next year, nobody expects anything from us because, oh, Alden and Kara are gone. You guys really have nothing. I love being the underdog. I'd much rather be in that position than be in a position where everybody's expecting a lot from us. So.
No, exactly. Well, Coach, I'm sure you'll be able to do it. You're a very exciting new coaching prospect. I'm sure you're going to go far. You already have gone far. But thanks for doing that. I'll try to get out there and check out a game next year, at least when you guys play Meridian, because I live.
Yes.
Are you guys in the same district as Meridian?
Yeah, we will continue to be in the same district as Meridian. So I thought they were moving up to 4A, but apparently they're not. So we'll be playing them against next year.
Okay, so I can come down and watch you guys play next year. But anyway,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Coach, this has been great. I really enjoyed hearing your views. It's easy to see why you're so successful. I just wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Oh, of course. Take care, Coach.
All right.